At my wedding party, my son and his wife laughed at my new husband in front of 300 people. They said he was too poor. They called him a joke. My daughter-in-law's whole family pointed and giggled while I felt my heart breaking into tiny pieces. I stood up shaking and told every single one of them to leave right now. Then my husband looked at me with eyes full of secrets and said words that made everything different. "Sweetheart, I'm very rich. But wait until I tell you how we got here, because what comes next will surprise everyone completely." Welcome to JAMAL'S Stories. I tell new real-life stories here every single day, and I really hope you click subscribe and give my video a thumbs up. Now let me go back to my story. I promise you'll enjoy it if you keep watching until the very end. Everything began 3 hours before, when I, Margaret, or Maggie as people call me at 59 years old, stood inside the most beautiful party room I had ever walked into. 300 guests sat in every chair covered in soft white cloth. The tables sparkled with pretty white tablecloths and huge flowers in gold and cream colors that looked like something from a fairy tale. I paid the best music players, the greatest food makers, all using every dollar I had saved. I wanted today to be perfect because after 12 years without a husband, of being lonely, of crying myself to sleep many nights, I had finally found someone to love again. Marcus, or Mark as I call him, stood next to me wearing his clean gray suit that wasn't fancy. His white hair was combed nicely, his hands rough from working hard jobs all his life. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't own a big car and lived in a tiny home in a regular part of town. But when he smiled at me, I felt like the most special woman on earth. That was all that really mattered to me. Then I heard the first mean, ugly laugh. It came from the second row, right where my son Kevin was sitting with his wife Lisa. Kevin was 36 years old, wearing a fancy Italian suit that cost more than $4,000 and a shiny expensive watch on his arm. He had always told me that having lots of money was the only important thing in the whole world. Lisa was even worse. That 33-year-old woman in her too tight bright red dress with super long painted fingernails and a snooty look had made my days terrible since she married my son. She came from a family that thought they were better than everyone, even though we all knew her dad got rich by doing wrong business tricks. "Look at this mess." I heard Lisa whisper to her mom loud enough so I could hear every word. "The old lady is marrying someone with no money." Her mother, Sandra Davis, a woman with way too many fake gold chains hanging around her neck, laughed while putting her hand over her mouth. "Poor Maggie, at her old age, she can't find anyone better than that." I felt my face get hot, but I kept looking at the man doing our wedding. Mark softly held my hand like he was saying, "Everything will be okay." But things were just starting to get worse. The wedding man kept talking, saying words about love, kindness, and two people joining together forever. I tried really hard to listen to what he said, to think about this moment I had dreamed about for many months, but the quiet giggles and mean words kept coming from where my family was sitting. "Did you look at his shirt?" one of Lisa's cousins said in a whisper. "It looks like something from a garbage sale." "And those pants," another one said. "My dog Walker wears nicer clothes." The whole row where Lisa's family sat laughed without making much noise. They were like mean birds waiting to attack. I felt my heart cracking apart, but Mark stayed calm, standing tall, like nothing they said bothered him at all. That made me feel strong enough to keep going. The time came for us to say our promises. When Mark started talking, his voice was strong and full of real feelings. "Maggie, from the first day we met, I knew you were the lady I wanted to be with for my whole life. I don't have fancy things to give you, but I give you my complete heart, my promise to always be loyal, and my word that I'll make you smile every single day I'm alive." Some people watching made sweet sounds, feeling touched. I had water in my eyes, but then I heard Kevin make a loud, mean laugh that bounced around the big room. "This is so stupid," my son said out loud without feeling sorry at all. He got up holding his drink, moving side to side a little. He had been drinking alcohol before our wedding started. "Seriously, Mom, this is the guy you picked, this broke old man." The whole room became completely quiet. 300 people stopped breathing. The wedding man stopped talking and looked at me looking worried. Mark held my hand tighter, but his face stayed peaceful, almost like he understood. Kevin, please, I tried to say. But my words came out sounding broken and embarrassed. Somebody needs to say what's really true here. Kevin walked to the middle path, moving his arms in big movements. You worked your entire life. You gave up so much for me. Dad left you good money when he died, and this is what you're doing with it. Marrying a nobody who just wants to steal your savings. Lisa stood up as well, an evil smile on her face. Kevin is completely right, Maggie. That's not a stepdad. That's garbage you found on the sidewalk. Her entire family started laughing really loud. Her mother, father, aunts, uncles, everyone laughing, pointing their fingers, taking out their phones to record everything. It felt like we were at a circus and Mark and I were the funny clowns. But then something inside my chest exploded. It wasn't sadness. It was anger, a hot burning feeling that went from my toes all the way to my head. I pulled my hand away from Mark's and walked straight to where my son stood. You know something, Kevin? My voice sounded completely different, bigger, stronger than I had heard it sound in many years. You're correct about one thing. Somebody does need to say what's really true right now. The quiet in that room was so thick you could almost touch it. 300 people stared at me with eyes wide open, waiting to see what embarrassed Maggie would say. My son Kevin had that proud, mean smile, the same one he wore as a little boy when he thought he had won a fight. Lisa stood next to him with her arms crossed, looking down at everyone like she always did. Her whole family kept snickering, having fun with this like it was the most entertaining show they had watched in forever. The real truth, I said again, feeling how heavy every word was leaving my lips, is that I spent 33 years of my life married to your dad. 33 years where I worked 14-hour days washing floors in other people's offices so you could go to the nicest schools. 33 years where I hurt my back, destroyed my hands, and gave up my health and my young years to give you everything you ever wanted. Kevin blinked his eyes, and for 1 second I saw him look uncomfortable, but he quickly hid it by drinking more from his glass. Your father was a wonderful man, I kept going, feeling tears starting to fill my eyes, but not letting them fall down. But when he got sick and passed away 12 years ago, he left me all alone, completely alone. Do you know how many times I came to your big house asking to visit with me? How many times I called you crying because being lonely was killing me inside? Mom, don't make a big scene, Kevin said. But his voice didn't sound as sure anymore. Scene. I laughed, but it was a hurt, painful laugh. A scene is being alone every single Christmas because you were too busy with Lisa's family celebrations. A scene is spending my 59th, 58th, 57th birthdays totally by myself because you couldn't even bother to send a simple text message. Some people watching started to whisper to each other. I could see angry looks being aimed at my son. But Lisa wasn't going to keep her mouth shut. Oh, come on, she said mean words, stepping closer, her high heels making clicking sounds on the shiny floor. Always playing the victim, aren't you, Maggie? Always complaining, always wanting attention. You know what? Kevin has his own life to live. He can't be taking care of you like you're a baby. Taking care of me. I whispered, feeling something inside me start to fall apart. I didn't ask to be taken care of. I just wanted a little bit of love, a tiny bit of respect, a small piece of the kindness I gave him his entire childhood. Mark was still standing where we were getting married, watching everything with a quiet but paying attention look. He didn't jump in. He didn't try to stop me. He was just there, letting me say everything I had kept buried inside for so many years. And now my voice shook but stayed loud. Now that I've finally found somebody who makes me feel happy again, somebody who treats me with respect and care, you come here to ruin it. You, my own son, come here to embarrass me in front of all these people. Because that man is using you for money, Kevin yelled, pointing his finger at Mark with hate. Look at him. Look really close. He dresses like a homeless person. He lives in a terrible apartment. He probably doesn't even have money in the bank, and I'm supposed to feel happy my mother is marrying that. Lisa's family clapped their hands and shouted supporting words. Exactly, screamed Lisa's father, Raymond Davis, a big heavy man whose greasy mustache seemed to drip over his stinky cigar smell. That poor old man just wants your mother's savings. So obvious. You should thank Kevin for caring about you. Lisa's mother, Sandra, added more words, shaking her many gold bracelets really loud on purpose. He's just protecting what you own. What I own. The words left my mouth like poison. Since when did you care about what I own, Kevin? Since when did you care about anything except what helps you? That's not being fair, he argued back, his face turning bright red. Not fair. Let me explain to you what's not being fair. It wasn't fair that when I needed $800 for a medical operation 4 years ago, you said you had no money, but 3 weeks later, you bought that expensive watch you're wearing right now. It wasn't fair that when I asked to borrow $4,000 to fix my broken roof, you made me sign a paper promising to pay you back with extra money, like I was a complete stranger. It isn't fair that every single time I asked for help, you treated me like I was annoying you, like I was a heavy weight. The whispers in the room got much louder. I could see some people shaking their heads yes, others looking at Kevin with judging eyes. My friends, the small number I had invited to come, had tears running down their faces. Betty Rogers, my best friend for 25 years, was crying right out in the open. But Lisa wasn't done yet. That woman never knew the right time to be quiet. You know what's really happening here, Maggie, she said, walking toward me with that better-than-you attitude that made my blood feel like it was boiling. You're desperate. You're old. You're lonely. And you grabbed onto the first guy who smiled at you. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. And honestly, my whole family sitting here can see you're making the worst choice you've ever made in your life. Her family cheered really loud in agreement. The cousins, the uncles, even random friends they brought along. All laughing, all making fun. Some were filming with their phones, recording every second of me being embarrassed to share later on the internet. I could imagine what they'd write. Crazy old woman marries a beggar. Or the most embarrassing wedding anyone has ever seen. I felt something deep inside me finally crack open. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't hurt. It was determination, a power I didn't know I had living inside me. I turned around and walked to Mark, who was still standing where we were supposed to get married with that mysterious calmness. I took his hand and looked right into his eyes. Are you absolutely sure you want to marry me? I asked in a quiet voice. Because my family is a complete mess, and they clearly don't deserve to be here watching this. Mark smiled. It was a tiny smile, but there was something hidden in it. Something I couldn't quite figure out yet. Maggie, my sweetheart, I've never been more sure about anything in my whole life. And you are completely right. There are people sitting here who don't deserve to see this special moment. I turned back to face the 300 guests. Most of them were good people, real friends, neighbors who actually cared about me. But there was one specific group that had turned the most important day of my whole life into a complete nightmare. Kevin, I said, and my voice echoed through the room with a power I had never used when talking to my son. You, Lisa, and your entire family. Leave. Get out of my wedding. Get out of my life. The silence that came next was so heavy you could almost feel it pressing down. Kevin looked at me like I had hit him across the face. What? He couldn't get his words out. Mom, you can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my entire life. I want all of you to walk out right now. Lisa let out a crazy-sounding laugh. You're kicking us out. Your own family. Not my family, I said back in a cold voice. You and your mean friends. You have 5 minutes to get out of this room or I'm calling the security guards. Kevin looked at me like he couldn't believe his ears. His face changed from shock to angry in just seconds. You're kicking me out of your wedding, your only son. Yes, I replied without waiting even 1 second. I'm throwing out you, your wife, and all those terrible people you brought here with you. Lisa took steps toward me, her pointer finger aimed at me like a weapon. Her black fingernails looked like sharp claws ready to scratch. You can't do this, you foolish old woman. You have no right to treat us this way. I have every right in the entire world. This is my wedding. I paid every single penny for this party. I rented this room. I paid for all the food. I hired all the music players. And I have every right to choose who stays here and who has to go. And all of you are definitely going. Lisa's father, Raymond, stood up from his seat, his big belly hanging way over his belt. Who do you think you are talking to us like that? My family has important connections in this town. We can destroy your life. Destroy me then, I said, feeling a bravery I didn't know was hiding inside me. You've already destroyed the most important day of my entire life. What more could you possibly do to hurt me? Lisa's mother Sandra also stood up, making all her gold bracelets make loud clanking sounds on purpose. This is disrespectful, a total lack of good manners. We traveled all the way here to support this ridiculous marriage, and this is how you pay us back. Support. I laughed in a bitter way. You call making fun of my husband, calling him garbage, and embarrassing him in front of everyone support. That's not support. That's just being really cruel. One of Lisa's cousins, a young man with way too much shiny gel in his hair, shouted from where he was sitting, "Your husband is trash. Everyone knows it. Just look at him. He looks like a bum you picked up off the street corner." Many members of their family laughed and clapped their hands. They were actually enjoying this. They were truly having fun tearing me down on my own special celebration day. Mark finally opened his mouth to speak. His voice was calm, almost soft. But there was a tone of being firm I had never heard come from him before. "Young man, you don't know me at all. You know absolutely nothing about me, and yet you feel like you can insult me. What does that say about who you really are?" The cousin immediately became quiet, like something in Mark's voice had made him powerless. But Kevin wasn't going to give up that easily. He came closer to me. His breath smelled like alcohol, and his face was bright red with anger. "Mom, if you kick us out right now, if you actually do this, you'll never see me again. You'll never get to see your grandkids again. Promise you that." Those words hit me like being punched in the stomach. My grandchildren, Tyler, 5 years old, and Emma, 3, I loved them with my whole entire heart. The thought of never getting to see them again was crushing. But then I looked at Mark. I looked at this man who had treated me with more kindness and respect in 5 months of dating than my own son had in the last 12 years. And I knew I had to make a choice. I had to choose my own happiness for the first time in my whole life. "If that is what you decide, Kevin," I said, and my voice cracked a tiny bit, but I didn't stop talking. "Then that's how it will be. I will not let you control me with guilt anymore. I will not let you use me like a personal money machine while treating me like trash when you don't need anything. You're selfish," Lisa screamed at the top of her lungs. "A selfish old woman who is choosing a complete stranger over her own family." "He's not a stranger," I replied in a calm way. "He's the man I love. And if you can't respect that simple fact, then you don't deserve a place in my life." Kevin looked at me with so much hate in his eyes that it almost made me take a step backward. "You're going to be sorry for this when that old man steals every dollar you have. When he leaves you with absolutely nothing, don't come crying to my door asking for help." "Don't worry," I said, feeling the tears finally start to run down my cheeks. "I won't ever come to you." The feeling in the party room was one of total tension. The other guests watched everything happening with a mix of shock and interest. Some of my friends looked like they wanted to help me, but they stayed sitting down, not sure what they should do. Betty Rogers, my best friend, finally stood up. She was a 61-year-old woman with short gray hair and a tough personality I had always really admired. "Kevin, Lisa, if you have any goodness in you at all, you will leave right this second and let Maggie be happy. What you are doing is mean and impossible to forgive." "You be quiet, you nosy old woman," Lisa snapped back at her. "This isn't any of your business at all." "It is my business when I see my best friend being hurt by her own family," Betty replied in a strong voice. "And to be completely honest, after seeing how you act, I perfectly understand why Maggie would rather marry Marcus. He has more class in his pinky finger than all of you put together." That made Lisa's family even more angry. They started yelling all at the same time, creating total chaos. Mean words flew through the air. Some people started standing up from where they were sitting. The party room that 30 minutes ago was a place of beauty and celebration now looked like a war zone. "Enough," I shouted with all the power in my lungs. My voice bounced around the space, making everyone instantly quiet. "I will call the security guards right this second if you don't leave on your own." I pointed at the party room manager, a tall, professional man who had been watching everything from the doorway. He nodded his head and started walking toward us with two big security guards. "We don't need you to kick us out," Kevin said with hate in his voice. "We are leaving because we want to. This place stinks anyway. And you," he pointed his finger at me. "You make me sick. I hope you are happy with your choice because you will never have your family again." "Real family doesn't treat you like this," I replied. And I felt Mark move closer and take my hand, giving me strength. Lisa grabbed her designer purse, the same one I had helped her buy last year when she borrowed $2,500 she never paid me back. "Let's get out of here. This wedding is a bad joke." Anyway, slowly, one by one, Lisa's entire family started getting up from their chairs. There were about 18 people total. They picked up their stuff with big exaggerated movements, making as much noise as they possibly could, making sure their exit was as dramatic as their behavior during the whole ceremony. "This is not finished," Lisa's father yelled as he walked toward the door. "Everyone in the whole city will know what kind of terrible woman you are." "Let them know," I said with a calm that surprised even me. "I don't care what people think anymore." As the parade of toxic people left the room, some even pushing chairs over and throwing napkins on the floor as a final act of being rebellious, the rest of the guests stayed in complete silence. It was like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen after this. Kevin was the last one to leave. He stopped right at the door, looked at me one final time and said, "Goodbye, Mom. I hope your new life with that loser is worth losing your only son over." And he walked out. The door closed behind him with a final bang sound that echoed in my heart like a door slamming shut forever. I stood there in the middle of the party room shaking all over. I had just kicked my son out of my wedding. I had just maybe broken my relationship with him forever. I had just lost the ability to see my grandchildren, the only innocent creatures in this whole horrible mess. Tears fell freely down my face. My makeup was completely ruined. My cream-colored dress had tear stains all over it. The happiest day of my life had turned into a total nightmare. Then I felt Mark's arms wrap around me. He hugged me with such gentleness, with such strength that for a moment I felt everything would turn out all right. "I am so sorry, sweetheart," I whispered against his chest. "I ruined absolutely everything. I ruined our wedding day." "You didn't ruin a single thing," he said softly, rubbing my hair. "You did the right thing, the brave thing. And I'm very proud of you." We stayed like that for a moment, holding each other in the middle of the mess that was left. The other guests slowly started to clap their hands. First Betty, then other friends, until the whole room was applauding. It wasn't clapping for celebration. It was clapping for support, for standing together. Mark gently separated from me and took both my hands. He looked me right in the eyes with a seriousness I had never seen before. "Maggie, my love, there's something I need to tell you right now." "What is it?" I asked, wiping my tears away. He took a big breath like he was about to say something really important. "I'm not who you think I am." My heart stopped beating for 1 second. What did that mean? After everything that had just happened, now he had a secret too. "Mark, what are you trying to say?" My voice shook. He smiled, but it was a strange smile, sad and happy at the exact same time. "Sweetheart, I'm extremely wealthy." I stared at him like he had spoken in a language I didn't understand. The words had come out of his mouth. They had reached my ears, but my brain refused to understand them. "What did you just say?" "I am extremely wealthy," Mark repeated with total calmness. "I have over $3 billion in assets, houses in 15 countries, businesses, investments, everything you can imagine." I felt my legs start to give out. Betty rushed toward me and grabbed my arm. "Maggie, breathe. Just breathe, friend." But I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything that had happened in the last hour, the embarrassment, the pain, kicking out my own son, and now this. I don't understand. I don't understand any of this. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive an old broken car. You're clothed. "It's all a choice I made on purpose," Mark said, and his voice was so gentle it made me want to cry all over again. After my first wife died 7 years ago, after watching how everyone around me only wanted my money, I decided to live in a simple way. I wanted to find someone who would love me for who I am as a person, not for what I have in my bank account. The room was in total silence. Everyone listened to every single word with complete attention. This was more dramatic than any soap opera they had ever watched on TV. "That's why you wear those old clothes," I whispered, starting to understand. "That's why you live in that tiny place. That's why you never let me pay when we went out to eat." "Exactly," he nodded his head. "And I found exactly what I was looking for. I found you, Maggie, a real, kind-hearted woman who treated me with respect and love, even when you thought I had nothing to offer except my heart." Tears came back to my eyes, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of pain or embarrassment. They were tears of something I couldn't name yet. "Why are you telling me right now? Why here after all this chaos?" Mark looked toward the door where Kevin and Lisa had left minutes before. "'Cause I wanted you to see who they really are deep inside. I wanted you to see their true character when they thought I was nothing. And I wanted you to make your own choice about them before knowing the truth about me." "My God," I whispered, putting my hands over my face. My son just insulted and embarrassed a billionaire. Your son just insulted and embarrassed the man you love." Mark gently corrected me. "The money shouldn't change that fact." He was right. He was totally right. But my mind was still spinning around, trying to process this impossible information. $3 billion. How? Where from? Mark smiled. And for the first time, I saw a flash of pride in his eyes. "I started with absolutely nothing, just like you. I worked building houses for 18 years. I saved every single penny. I bought land when everyone else said it was worthless. I bought buildings everyone said would never make money. I built an empire brick by brick. But when my wife, my beloved Sarah, died of a terrible sickness, all that money meant absolutely nothing. I couldn't save her. I couldn't make her stay with me for even one more day." His voice broke at the end, and I saw the real pain in his eyes. This man had suffered, had loved and lost just like me. After she died, he kept talking. Everyone around me changed completely. My friends only called when they needed money. The women who chased me only saw dollar signs. My own family members tried to take me to court for the money. I realized that wealth had poisoned all my relationships, so I decided to disappear from everyone's radar. I kept my businesses running, but I totally changed how I lived my life. Betty was still next to me, holding me up. But even she had her mouth hanging open listening to this story. "Meeting you, Maggie." Mark took my hands in his. It was like coming back to life after being dead. "You treated me with dignity. You listened when I spoke. You laughed at my silly jokes. You cooked me your homemade meals. You invited me into your house without caring that my clothes were old or my car was falling apart. You loved me for who I am." "I don't know what to say," I stammered. My whole world had been flipped completely upside down in less than 2 hours. "You don't have to say anything right this second," he said, gently touching my cheek. "I know it's a lot to process. I know all this is overwhelming, but I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that you made the right choice. That defending our love, defending our relationship was worth every bit of pain." Suddenly, everything started to click into place in my mind like puzzle pieces fitting together. The small details I had noticed but never questioned. The way Mark always seemed so confident. The way he talked about business with deep knowledge. The times he had casually mentioned traveling the world. His education, his words, his manners, it all made perfect sense now. "Did anyone else know?" "Yes. Did anyone know the real truth about you?" "My lawyer, Thomas Grant," Mark replied. "He's here today in row 10. He's been managing my business affairs for the last 7 years. I asked him to come to our wedding as a witness to everything." I looked toward row 10 and saw a well-dressed man in his 50s, wearing a clearly expensive suit, nodding his head as our eyes met. He looked like someone very important. How had I not noticed him sitting there before? "And what happens now?" I asked, feeling completely lost and confused. "What does all this mean for us?" Mark smiled with the same love I had seen in his eyes from the very first day we met. "It means that now we can start our life together without any secrets. It means I can give you everything you deserve and more. It means you'll never have to worry about money, safety, or anything ever again. But more important than all that, he squeezed my hands harder. It means I found someone who truly loves me, and that is worth more than all the billions in the entire world. Tears streamed down my face freely. Now I couldn't control them at all. It was all too much. The emotion, the shock, the revelation, everything mixed in a tornado of feelings I couldn't process. Betty hugged me tightly. Girl, I always told you this man was special. I always knew it deep down. Other guests started to come closer, offering words of support and congratulations, but I stayed in a state of shock, trying to process this new reality I was living in. There's something else you should know, Mark said softly. The $4,000 your son Kevin lent you with extra interest. I already paid it off without you knowing. I put the full amount into his bank account 4 months ago. What? My voice came out as a scream. I didn't want you to have that debt hanging over your head, but I asked Thomas to do it without my name attached. I wanted to see if Kevin would mention it to you, if he would give you the money back, or if he would tell you the debt was paid off. He never said anything to you, did he? I shook my head slowly, feeling a new wave of betrayal hit me like a truck. He never said a single word. In fact, 3 weeks ago, he called me asking when I was going to pay him back the money. Mark sighed sadly. I figured that's why I needed you to see his true character before we got married. I needed you to know exactly who you were dealing with in your life. Then everything made complete sense. Test. It had all been a test, not for me, but to show the true nature of the people around me. And they had all failed in the most spectacular way. My son, I whispered, feeling my heart break all over again. My own son was stealing from me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, Mark said, hugging me tight. I know it hurts. I know it's devastating. But it was better for you to know now than to continue living not knowing the truth. He was right. Of course he was right. But that didn't make it hurt any less at all. My only child, the baby I had carried inside me for 9 months, the boy I had raised with so much love and giving up things, had been robbing me, lying to me, using me. And today at my wedding he had shown who he really was inside. What do we do now? I asked, feeling completely exhausted. Mark looked me right in the eyes with determination. Now we continue with our wedding. Now we get married surrounded by the people who truly love and support us, and after that we start our new life together as husband and wife. The minister, who had stayed quiet during the whole drama, came closer to us with a look of real compassion. He was an old man about 68 years old with decades of experience doing weddings, but even for him this had been extraordinary and unusual. Do you wish to continue with the ceremony? He asked softly. I looked at Mark. I looked at the room full of people who had witnessed my embarrassment and my defense. I looked at Betty, who was smiling at me through her tears. And I knew the answer deep in my heart. Yes, I said firmly. Yes, we want to continue. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of emotion and feelings. The minister started the ceremony again from where we had stopped. This time there were no interruptions, no cruel laughter, no hurtful comments flying through the air. There was only love, support, and a completely different energy in the atmosphere. When Mark placed the ring on my finger, I felt like I was starting a brand new life. And when the minister declared us husband and wife, the room erupted in real, heartfelt applause. I kissed my husband, and in that moment, all the pain of the last few hours disappeared for a while. I was happy. I was married to the love of my life, and nothing else mattered in that instant. The party was beautiful. Without the toxic presence of Kevin, Lisa, and their family, the atmosphere completely transformed into something magical. People danced, laughed, and celebrated with real joy. My friends kept coming up to me to congratulate me and tell me how brave I had been. Some even admitted they had always thought Kevin treated me poorly, but had never felt brave enough to say so out loud. During dinner, Mark stood up and asked for everyone's attention. The room became silent. I want to thank everyone who stayed today. His voice began, echoing with natural authority. You have been witnesses to something very difficult, but also something very important and powerful. You have seen an incredible woman defend her dignity and her right to be happy. And I want you to know that I am honored to be her husband. Applause filled the room completely. Mark continued, I also want to clarify something. Some of you heard my confession a while ago, and I know many of you have questions running through your minds. So let me be completely transparent and honest. I am the founder and owner of Sterling Property Corporation, SPC, one of the largest real estate development firms in the entire Midwest region. There was a collective gasp of air. Sterling Property Corporation was legendary. They had built some of the most iconic tall buildings in the region: luxury hotels, shopping centers, apartment complexes. I myself had mopped floors in some of those buildings when I worked cleaning offices at night. The reason I never mentioned it, Mark continued, is because after losing my first wife, I realized that money attracted the wrong kind of people into my life. I wanted to find true love, not someone interested in my wallet. And I found it in Maggie. This woman loved me when she thought I was a simple retired worker. She gave me her heart without expecting anything in return. And that, my friends, is absolutely priceless. He took my hand and raised me up. So I stood next to him. So now I want to promise her in front of all of you that I will dedicate the rest of my life to making her happy, to giving her everything she deserves, and to protecting her from anyone who tries to harm her in any way. The ovation was deafening and loud. Betty was openly weeping. Other friends hugged each other, feeling moved. It was like everyone shared my happiness in a deep, real way. But in the middle of all that joy, my mind kept going back to one image. Kevin's face as he left the room. The rage, the contempt, the absolute certainty that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. And I wondered what he was thinking now. Had he heard the rumors about who Mark really was? Did he know he had insulted and embarrassed a billionaire? As if Mark could read my thoughts, he leaned toward me during our dance and whispered, "I know you're thinking about him. It's normal. He's your son." "I can't help it," I admitted. "Despite everything he did, he's still my son, and it hurts so much." "I know, sweetheart, and I don't expect that to change overnight. But I want you to know something important. The fact that he's your son doesn't give him the right to abuse you. Family love shouldn't include abuse, manipulation, or embarrassment." He was right. I knew it in my heart. But a mother's heart is complicated and confusing. You can know your child has hurt you deeply and still love them. You can recognize their toxicity and still miss them. It's a painful contradiction only mothers fully understand. The party continued into the late hours of the night. We danced, ate delicious cake, and toasted with champagne that cost more than I used to earn in a whole month cleaning offices. It was all surreal and dreamlike. This morning I had woken up as Maggie, the 59-year-old woman who had worked hard all her life just to survive. Now I was going to sleep as Maggie Vance, the wife of a billionaire. When we finally went to the honeymoon suite Mark had reserved at the city's most luxurious hotel, I felt overwhelmed by everything around me. The room was larger than my entire apartment. It had huge windows from floor to ceiling overlooking the entire lit-up city, a massive bed with sheets that probably cost thousands of dollars, and a marble bathroom with a bathtub that looked like a small swimming pool. "Are you all right?" Mark asked, taking off his jacket. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my cream-colored dress. "Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a dream or maybe a nightmare or both at the same time." Mark sat next to me and took my hand. "I know it's a lot to process. Everything changed in a matter of hours, but I want you to know something very important, Maggie. Nothing between us has changed. I'm still the same man you met 5 months ago. The same man who fell in love with your laugh, your kindness, your strength. Money is just money. It doesn't define who I am as a person. But it changes everything." I whispered. "Changes absolutely everything." "It doesn't have to," he insisted. "We can continue to live simply if that's what you want. Or we can enjoy some comforts. You decide. This is our life now. Our decision together." I looked into his eyes and saw the same tenderness I had always seen, the same gentleness, the same love. And I realized he was right. The money hadn't changed him. He was still Mark. "Hey Mark, I want to ask you something," I said after a moment of silence. "Why me? Of all the women you could have chosen, why did you choose a 59-year-old widow with a problematic son and a complicated life?" Mark smiled, and it was that smile that made my heart melt like butter. "Do you remember the day we met?" He nodded. It had been at the local farmer's market. I was buying vegetables, trying to find the cheapest ones. He was in the same aisle and our shopping carts had accidentally bumped into each other. You apologized about 6 times, Mark recalled with a smile. And then, when you saw a cucumber had fallen out of my cart and rolled under a shelf, you got down on your knees to pick it up. You got down on your bad knee that always hurts you just to get my cucumber back. And when you handed it back to me and I thanked you, you smiled at me with such warmth, such genuine kindness that I knew in that moment you were special and different. I didn't remember that detail about the cucumber. It had been such a small, meaningless gesture. Afterward, he continued, we started running into each other regularly at the market, always on Tuesday mornings. And every time I saw you, I learned something new about you. Your patience with the sellers, your generosity toward the kids selling candies on the street, the way you greeted everyone with respect, no matter who they were. I saw your soul, Maggie, and I fell in love with it. Tears started falling down my cheeks again. It seemed I hadn't stopped crying all day long. So yes, Mark said, wiping my tears with his thumbs. Of all the women I could have chosen, I chose you because you are real. 'Cause you are good. Because you make me feel alive again after being dead inside. Kissed. And in that kiss was a promise. A promise of a future together no matter what challenges came our way. But even in that perfect moment in that luxurious room with my new husband next to me, a part of me couldn't stop thinking about Kevin. How he would react when he learned the complete truth. Whether we could ever repair our relationship, and whether I truly wanted to try after everything he had done to me. I woke up the next morning in that enormous bed wrapped in sheets that felt like soft clouds. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream. The wedding, the embarrassment, Mark's revelation. But then I turned my head and saw him sleeping peacefully next to me. And I knew it was all real. Everything had happened. My life had changed forever in a matter of 24 hours. I got up carefully not to wake him and walked to the giant windows. The city stretched out below us, bathed in the golden light of sunrise. From this height, everything seemed so small, so meaningless, and I wondered if that was how Mark saw the world from his position of power and wealth. Good morning, my love, I heard his voice behind me. I turned and saw him sitting up in bed. His hair messy, a gentle smile on his face. Good morning, I replied, feeling a mixture of happiness and worry. I couldn't sleep anymore. It's understandable. Yesterday was intense and overwhelming. He got up and walked toward me, wrapping me in a hug from behind. What are you thinking about? Everything, I admitted. Kevin, what happened? What comes next in our lives? Mark kissed my head gently. I have something to show you. Something I think will help you better understand who I am and what our new life together really means. Half an hour later, we were in a private helicopter. Helicopter. Never in my life had I imagined I would be flying in one. Mark handled the controls with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. I learned to fly 18 years ago. He explained when he saw my surprised face. It's useful for business and it also gives me freedom to go wherever I want. We flew over the city and Mark started pointing out different buildings. That hotel right there, the Grand Sapphire, is mine. I built it 13 years ago. It has 350 rooms and is one of the most successful in the whole region. He pointed in another direction. That shopping center, the Crystal Plaza, is also mine. And those 4 apartment buildings over there. And that industrial complex near the river. With every building he pointed out, my disbelief grew bigger and bigger. He wasn't just rich. He owned significant parts of the city where I had lived my entire life. I had mopped floors in some of those buildings without ever knowing who their true owner was. See that hospital? He pointed toward a modern building with a red cross on the roof. I donated it 6 years ago. My wife Sarah died of cancer and the public health system didn't have the necessary resources to help her. So, I built an entire hospital dedicated to free cancer treatment for poor people. That information hit me like a punch to the chest. Free. Completely free. He confirmed. No one should die because they can't afford their treatment. Sarah had access to the best doctors in the world. And still we couldn't save her. But at least I can help others who don't even have that opportunity. I started seeing Mark in a completely different light. He wasn't just a rich man. He was a man who used his wealth to do good, to help others, to build something meaningful. I also have foundations, he continued as we landed on the rooftop of an impressive building, the headquarters of Sterling Property Corporation. One for educational scholarships, another for affordable housing, and one for entrepreneurs who need starting capital but can't access bank loans. We got off the helicopter and entered the building. The offices were elegant but not showing off. Employees were working in bright open spaces. Everyone greeted Mark with genuine respect, not the scared fear I had seen in other places where bosses were feared. "I want to introduce you to someone," Mark said, guiding me toward a large office on the top floor. Inside was Thomas Grant, the lawyer he had mentioned at the wedding. He was a distinguished man in his 50s with silver hair and a commanding presence. "Mrs. Williams," he greeted me with a slight bow. "It is an honor to finally meet you properly. Mark has spoken a lot about you over the last 5 months." "Really?" I asked, surprised. Of course, Thomas smiled. He constantly told me he had found someone special, someone genuine. And after what I witnessed at the wedding yesterday, I can confirm he was absolutely right. Mark gestured for us to sit down. "Thomas, show Maggie the documents we prepared." Thomas opened a leather folder and pulled out several papers. "Mrs. Williams, your husband has prepared some important documents. First, he has added your name to all his main bank accounts. You have complete access to all his funds." My mouth dropped open. "What? No, I can't accept that. We just got married yesterday." "You are my wife," Mark said firmly. "What's mine is yours. It's that simple." "In addition," Thomas continued, "he has transferred the title of 4 properties into your name. A beach house, a city apartment, a mountain retreat, and a lakeside cabin. He has also established an investment fund in your name with an initial value of $40 million. I felt dizzy and lightheaded. $40 million for me. A woman who had spent most of her life worrying about how to pay rent each month. "Mark, this is too much," I protested. "I can't accept all this." "Yes, you can," he interrupted gently. "And there's more. I've also established trust funds for your grandchildren. Tyler and Emma will each have $8 million available when they turn 25, specifically for their education, starting a business, or whatever they choose to do with their lives." Tears started to fall down my face. My grandchildren. Despite everything Kevin had done, Mark was thinking about my grandchildren's future. "Why?" was all I could say. "Because they are innocent," Mark replied. "Because they are not to blame for their parents' actions, and because they are your blood, Maggie. They are important to you, so they are important to me." Thomas continued explaining more details. Life insurance policies, diversified investments, commercial properties. The amount of money was so astronomical that my brain simply couldn't process it all. "Also," Mark said after Thomas finished, "I want you to know that you have total freedom about how you want to live your life. If you want to continue living simply, we can do that. If you want to travel the world, we'll do it. If you want to dedicate yourself to charitable causes, I will support you completely. This is your life now, Maggie. You decide how you want to live it." We spent the rest of the day touring his company's facilities. I met managers, architects, and engineers. Everyone spoke of Mark with genuine admiration and respect. He wasn't just a boss. He was a leader who cared about his people. He had created training programs, generous benefits, and opportunities for real growth. "My philosophy has always been simple," he explained as we ate at an exclusive restaurant on the top floor of the building. "If you take care of your people take care of your business." Many of my employees have been with me for more than 15 years. I've watched them grow, start families, achieve their dreams, and that makes me happier than any amount of money. By the afternoon, when we returned to the hotel suite, I felt completely overwhelmed. I had seen and learned so much in a single day. My perspective on everything had drastically changed. "How are you processing all this?" Mark asked as we sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. "Honestly, I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me still feels like I'm going to wake up and it will all be a dream. Another part of me feels guilty." "Guilty? Why?" Because while I was struggling to survive mopping floors in buildings that were yours, you had all this power, all this wealth. It feels, I don't know, unfair and disproportionate." Mark nodded thoughtfully. "I understand that feeling. Inequality in the world is brutal and unfair. That's why I do what I do. The foundations, the hospital, the housing programs. I try to use my privilege to create opportunities for others. But you're right. It will never be enough. I can never fully compensate for the injustice of the system we live in." "And Kevin?" I asked, finally voicing the question that had been circling in my mind all day. "What about him?" Mark sighed. "Thomas has been monitoring the situation. Apparently, your son and Lisa are having some serious financial problems. They've been living beyond their means for years. They have massive debts. And now, after what happened yesterday, some of his business partners are distancing themselves from them." "How do you know all that?" I asked, surprised. "Because I asked for an investigation," Mark admitted. "Not to harm them, but to understand the complete situation. And what we discovered is worrying, Maggie. Your son is on the verge of bankruptcy. He owes money to a lot of dangerous people." I felt my stomach clench tight. "How bad is the situation?" "Very bad. He owes close to $1.8 million between bank loans, credit cards, and failed investments. And some of his creditors are not exactly patient or legal." My heart sank. Despite everything Kevin had done to me, he was still my son. The thought of him being in danger terrified me. $1.8 million. I repeated, feeling panic begin to set in. How is it possible for him to owe that much money? Mark took my hand. According to Thomas's investigation, Kevin invested in several fraudulent businesses. He bought shares in fake companies. He borrowed money at loan shark rates to maintain his lavish lifestyle. And Lisa didn't help. She spends as if money were unlimited. Designer bags, jewelry, trips to Europe, all on credit cards that are already maxed out completely. I covered my face with my hands. My God. And here I am with access to millions while my son is sinking in debt. "Maggie, look at me." Mark gently lifted my chin so our eyes met. "Your son publicly embarrassed you, called you horrible things, ruined the most important day of your life. And he did it when he thought I had nothing to offer you. Do you truly believe he deserves your compassion after that?" "He's my son," I whispered, tears starting to fall again. "I know he treated me horribly. I know he was cruel, but he's still my son, Mark. I can't just turn off those feelings." Mark nodded with understanding. "I know, and I'm not asking you to, but you need to understand something. If you give him money now, if you bail Kevin out of this situation, he will never learn. He will never face the consequences of his actions. And most importantly, he will never truly value your sacrifice. But you said some of his creditors are dangerous. What if they hurt him? What if they hurt Lisa or worse, my grandchildren?" "The children are safe," Mark assured me. "Thomas has already taken care of that. We hired discreet security to watch over them. No one will touch Tyler or Emma. Promise you." That information gave me some relief, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't disappear. "And Kevin, are you watching him too?" "Yes, and this is where things get interesting." Mark leaned back in his chair. His expression became more serious. 4 days ago, Kevin found out who I really am. A business partner of his showed him a Forbes article featuring me on the list of the richest men in the Midwest. My heart stopped. And what did he do? At first he didn't believe it. He thought it was a coincidence of names. But then he looked up photos and recognized me. Since then he has tried to contact me 15 times. Calls, texts, emails, all through my company's official channels. And what did you do? Nothing. I ignored every attempt, but Thomas saved all the messages. Do you want to hear what he said? I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I nodded anyway. Mark pulled out his phone and started reading. First message. Mr. Marcus Vance. I sincerely regret the misunderstanding at the wedding. I was unaware of who you were. Please allow me to explain. He paused and looked at me. Notice how he says he regrets the misunderstanding, not his actions, as if the problem was simply that he didn't know I was rich. He continued reading. Second message. Mr. Vance, this is Kevin, Maggie's son. I urgently need to speak with you about a business matter. I have a proposal that could be mutually beneficial. Mark let out a bitter laugh. He doesn't even mention his mother. He goes straight to asking for business favors. Third message. He kept reading. This one was sent yesterday evening. Mr. Vance, I am going through a complicated financial situation. As your wife's son, I hoped we could speak as family. I am sure we can reach an agreement that benefits everyone, especially Mom. I felt nauseated. He's using my name to manipulate you. Exactly. And there's more. Message number 8. Mr. Vance, I know I made mistakes at the wedding. I was drunk and wasn't thinking clearly. But I am Maggie's only son. The grandchildren she adores are my children. Do you really want to break that family relationship? I can make her happy if you help me resolve my current problems. That's emotional blackmail, I said, feeling rage begin to replace worry. Absolutely. And the most recent message sent this morning. Marcus, I need $400,000 by the end of the week or I will be in serious trouble. As my mother's husband, you have a moral obligation to help her family. I promise to pay it all back with interest. I trust in your understanding. I remained silent for a long moment, processing everything I had just heard. My son hadn't called to apologize to me. He hadn't tried to repair our relationship. He hadn't shown an ounce of genuine repentance or regret. He only wanted money. He was only trying to use my marriage to solve his own financial problems. What are you planning to do? Finally asked. The question is, what do you want me to do? Mark replied. You are his mother. You are my wife. This decision affects you as much as it affects me. I stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony, looking at the city stretching out below us. Somewhere down there, my son was desperate, scared, probably planning his next move. Part of me, that maternal part that never disappears, no matter how much you're hurt, wanted to rush and save him. I wanted to give him the money and solve all his problems. But another part of me, the part that had been embarrassed in front of 300 people, the part that had been used and manipulated for years, the part that had finally found the strength to defend her dignity, knew that would be a mistake. Don't give him the money, I said finally, my voice firmer than I expected. Not yet. Not like this. Mark approached me and hugged me from behind. Are you sure? No, I admitted, but I know it's the right thing to do. If we bail him out now without real consequences for his actions, we will only be enabling his behavior. He needs to hit rock bottom. He needs to understand that he can't treat people like that and get away with it. It's a brave decision, Mark said, kissing my head. It's a painful decision, I corrected, but a necessary one. The following days were an emotional roller coaster ride. Mark and I went on our honeymoon to a private island in the Caribbean, which of course he owned. It was a paradise with white sand beaches, crystal clear water, and absolute privacy. I tried to relax to enjoy this time with my new husband, but my mind kept returning to Kevin. Thomas kept us informed of the situation. Kevin's creditors were starting to apply pressure. They had repossessed his luxury car. They had frozen his bank accounts. The house where he lived with Lisa and the children was in foreclosure. And Lisa? I asked during one of the video call updates. She left Kevin 3 days ago. Thomas informed us in his usual professional tone. She moved in with her parents and took the children. She filed for divorce yesterday morning. I felt a pang of pain for Kevin despite everything. Being abandoned by your wife, losing your children, facing financial ruin all at the same time. It was devastating. And how is he? Yes. Not well, Thomas admitted. Our contacts say he's been drinking heavily. He's not eating properly. He has tried to contact several of his former friends and partners, but they have all turned their backs on him now that they know he's broke. How convenient, I murmured bitterly. There's something else, Thomas continued. Kevin tried to sell his story to the media. He called several newspapers and television programs, offering an exclusive about how his mother married a billionaire and abandoned him in his time of need. What? I shrieked, feeling rage flood over me. Don't worry, Mark took my hand. Our public relations team already handled it. No reputable media outlet will touch that story, especially after we showed them the videos from the wedding where he publicly embarrasses you. There are videos? I asked, surprised. Course. Several guests recorded the entire incident, and with your permission, we have strategically used them to protect your reputation. If Kevin tries to paint you as the villain, we have clear evidence of who truly acted poorly. I sat in silence, absorbing all this information. My son had fallen so low that he was trying to sell me to the media. He was trying to use my happiness, my new life, as a way to make money and play the victim. I think I said slowly that I need to see him. Mark looked at me with concern. Are you sure that's a good idea? No, but I have to do it. I need to look him in the eyes and tell him exactly how I feel. I need that closure for myself. 3 days later, I was standing in front of a rundown apartment building in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. It was an area I knew well. I had lived in similar places for years when Kevin was little. The smell of dampness and garbage filled the air. The walls were covered in graffiti, and the stairs creaked dangerously under my feet as I climbed to the second floor. Mark had insisted on accompanying me, but I asked him to wait in the car with the bodyguards, who were now apparently a permanent part of my life. This was something I needed to do alone. I knocked on the door of apartment number 24. I heard shuffling footsteps on the other side, and then the door slowly opened. What I saw broke my heart despite everything. Kevin looked terrible. He had several days of beard growth and deep dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled and stained. The apartment behind him was tiny and messy with empty alcohol bottles scattered everywhere. This wasn't the arrogant, well-dressed man who had embarrassed me at my wedding. This was a broken man. Mom, his voice came out as a broken whisper. His eyes immediately filled with tears. Mom, you came. I came, I said, keeping my distance in the doorway. I wasn't going in. I wasn't going to make things easy for him. Please come in. I know the place is horrible, but he began, but I interrupted him. I'm not coming in, Kevin. I came to tell you a few things and then I'm leaving. His face fell. Mom, please. I need to talk to you. I need to explain everything. Everything has been a nightmare. Lisa left me. She took the kids. I lost everything. And what did you expect? My voice sounded harsher than I intended, but there was so much accumulated pain, I couldn't hold it back. Did you expect that? After publicly embarrassing me, after calling my husband garbage, after trying to ruin the most important day of my life, everything would just stay the same. I was drunk, he tried to excuse himself. I didn't know what I was saying. If I had known who Mark really was. There it is, I interrupted, feeling the rage surge in my chest. There's the truth. If you had known Mark was a billionaire, you would have treated me differently. If you had known he had money, you would have respected him. But because you thought he was poor, that he was worthless, you felt you had the right to treat us like garbage. It's not like that, he stammered. But we both knew it was exactly like that. Yes, it is, Kevin. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. You didn't love me. You didn't respect my happiness. You only cared about the money. You only cared about how my marriage affected you. Please. His tears were falling freely now. Please, Mom. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was jealous. I was scared of losing you and I reacted in the worst way possible. Jealous. I repeated with disbelief. You left me alone for 12 years and you were jealous. You ignored my calls, my pleas to spend time together. You treated me like a personal bank and you were jealous. You're right. I was selfish. You're completely right. I was a horrible son, the worst son anyone could have. But I'm paying for it now. I'm losing everything. I've already lost everything, and the only thing I have left is you, Mom. You are the only thing I have left in this world. You lost me too, I said. And the words came out with a deep pain that pierced my chest. You lost me the day you decided your pride and your materialism were more important than your mother. No, he whimpered, falling to his knees. Don't say that. Please don't say that. I'll do anything to fix it. Anything. Anything. I asked, crossing my arms. Then why were all your messages to Mark asking for money? Why wasn't a single one of those messages a sincere apology to me? Why did you try to sell our story to the media? His face turned pale. How do you know about that? I know everything, Kevin. I know about your debts. I know about the loan sharks. I know Lisa left you. I know you tried to use my marriage to get out of your problems. I know everything. He remained silent, still on his knees on the dirty floor of that miserable apartment. I'm desperate, Mom. I need $400,000 by Friday. Or very bad people are going to hurt me. People who don't play around. They've already threatened me twice. And you came to me, I said with a calm I didn't feel. Not because you love me. Not because you value our relationship, but because you need money. No, it's not just about the money. I miss you, Mom. I miss having you in my life. I miss what, Kevin? Miss having someone you could manipulate. Miss having a personal bank who never said no. Miss having someone who cleaned up your messes without complaining. I miss my mother, he whispered. And there was something genuine in his voice that almost made me waver. I miss how you took care of me when I was a kid. How you were always there for me. How you made me feel safe and loved. That boy doesn't exist anymore, I said, feeling tears start to sting my eyes. He turned into a man who values money more than people. A man who married a toxic woman and allowed her to poison our relationship. A man who used me for years and then embarrassed me when I finally found happiness. Can change, he pleaded. Give me a chance. Just one more chance, and I promise I'll be different. How many chances have I given you already, Kevin? How many times did I lend you money you never returned? How many times did I forgive you for canceling our plans? How many times did I swallow my pain when you treated me like I was invisible? And what did you do with all those chances? He had no answer. He just stayed there on his knees, crying like a child. I'm going to tell you something, I continued, my voice trembling but firm. Mark wanted to help you. When he found out about your financial problems, his first instinct was to pay for everything. $400,000 is nothing to him. He could write that check right now and not even notice it in his bank account. Kevin's eyes lit up with hope. He would really do that. He would, I confirmed. But I told him not to. The hope on his face turned to shock. What? Why? Because if I rescue you now, you will never learn. You will never understand the real value of things. You will never value people over money. You will continue to be the same superficial, materialistic man who treated me like garbage. But Mom, they're going to hurt me. These men aren't playing around. They've threatened to kill me. I know, I said, and my heart broke as I spoke the next words. And that terrifies me. Because despite everything you've done to me, you're still my son. And I don't want anything bad to happen to you. But I also can't continue to be your eternal savior. I can't keep being the person who fixes all your problems while you never face the consequences of your actions. Then what am I supposed to do? He shouted, his voice full of desperation. Just wait for them to kill me. You are going to do what any responsible adult would do, I replied. You are going to the police. You are going to report the loan sharks. You are going to ask for protection. And you are going to start rebuilding your life from scratch. The right way. The police can't do anything against these people. They're too powerful. They have too many connections. Then I'm going to give you something better than money, I said, pulling a business card from my purse. It was Thomas Grant's. This is Mark's lawyer. He's one of the best in the country. Call him. He will handle your legal situation, protect you from the creditors, and help you file for bankruptcy in an orderly manner. Kevin took the card with trembling hands. And after that, what? After I'm safe, will you come back into my life? That depends on you, I replied. It depends on whether you truly change, whether you learn from this, whether you can become the man I know you can be, the man I raised you to be. And my children, can I at least see them? Can they know their grandmother again? That question hit me hard. Tyler and Emma. I had missed them every day since the wedding. I will talk to Lisa, I promised. But she doesn't owe me anything. If she decides she doesn't want me to see the children for now, I'll have to respect that decision. She hates you, Kevin said bitterly. She says all this is your fault. That if you hadn't married that old man, none of this would have happened. Of course she says that, I replied unsurprised. Because taking responsibility would mean admitting that her unsustainable lifestyle contributed to this situation. I turned to leave, but then Kevin called out one last time, "Mom, wait. Just tell me one thing. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I stopped in the hallway and looked at him over my shoulder. "I don't know, Kevin. Honestly, I don't know. But I can tell you this. I want to be able to. I want to believe my son is still in there underneath all that pride and materialism. So prove it to me. Prove you're worth it." 5 months later, I was sitting on the terrace of our new home, a beautiful villa overlooking the ocean that Mark had designed specifically to my tastes. The sea breeze caressed my face as I sipped my morning coffee and watched the waves break against the private beach. It was a life I had never imagined for myself. And yet here I was living it. My phone rang. It was Betty, my friend. "Maggie, turn on the news. Channel 5 quick." My heart pounding. I turned on the television. What I saw took my breath away. It was Kevin, but not the broken man I had seen 5 months ago. He was in a simple but dignified suit, standing in front of a group of young people at what looked like a community center. 1 year ago, Kevin was saying to the camera, "I lost everything. I lost my house, my marriage, my money. But worst of all, I lost my dignity and I almost lost my mother. Today I'm here to tell these young people my story. Not for them to pity me, but for them to learn from my mistakes." The reporter asked him questions about his downfall and recovery. Kevin spoke openly about his debts, about how he had lived beyond his means, about how he had valued material things over the people he loved. "My mother," he said, and his voice cracked slightly. "She gave me the hardest but most important lesson of my life. She let me fall. She let me face the consequences of my actions, and at first I hated her for it. But now I understand it was the greatest act of love she could have ever given me." Mark appeared behind me and put a hand on my shoulder. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" "I don't know," I whispered, unable to take my eyes off the screen. The report continued, showing how Kevin had filed for bankruptcy with Thomas's help, how he had found work at a construction company, starting from the bottom as a helper. They showed his small but clean and orderly apartment. They showed how he now gave talks at schools and community centers about financial responsibility and the consequences of materialism and his relationship with his mother. The reporter asked. Kevin looked down. "We are working on that slowly. She gave me her number 4 months ago and we talk once a week. They are difficult conversations. There is a lot of pain to heal. But for the first time in years I feel like we are being honest with each other." It was true. After he called Thomas that day in his apartment, things had gradually begun to change. Thomas had handled his legal situation brilliantly, reaching agreements with creditors and protecting Kevin from any violence. The bankruptcy had been humiliating for him, but necessary. 2 months after our meeting, Kevin had sent me a letter. Not a text message, not an email, but a 12-page handwritten letter. In it, he detailed all his remorse, his arrogance, his materialism, how he had allowed Lisa to poison our relationship. But most importantly, he apologized. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't mention money. He just apologized deeply and sincerely. That letter made me cry for hours. Mark held me while I processed all those complicated feelings. I gave him my phone number a week later. Our first conversation was awkward, uncomfortable, full of long silences. But we continued every week without fail. We talked for 30 minutes. "And his children?" The reporter continued on TV. "That's a process," Kevin replied. "Lisa and I are in co-parenting therapy. It was something I suggested because I want my kids to have functional parents even if we are no longer together. Is there a message you would like to give to people going through similar situations?" Kevin looked directly into the camera. "Pride will destroy you if you let it. Materialism will consume you. And the people who truly love you, the ones who are willing to let you fall so you can learn to fly, those are the ones you should value more than anything in the world. I also want to say something to my mother if she's watching this." My heart stopped. "Mom," Kevin said with tears in his eyes, "I know you're probably watching this. I want you to know that every day I am working on being the man you deserved as a son. Every day I try to be better. I don't expect you to forgive me tomorrow or next year or ever if you don't want to. But I want you to know that I understand now. I understand everything and I love you. I have always loved you, even when I was too stupid and arrogant to show it. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Mark hugged me tightly. The following month, I received another surprise. Thomas called me to inform me that Kevin had paid back the money he owed. The $4,000 Mark had paid for me. He worked overtime for 5 months to gather the money. Thomas explained. That night I sent Kevin a text message for the first time. Just 3 words. I'm proud of you. His response came 15 minutes later. That means more to me than any amount of money in the world. 2 weeks later we met at a neutral coffee shop. It was awkward at first. There was so much to say and yet nothing to say. But slowly we began to talk. Would you like to meet the children again? Asked cautiously. Kevin's eyes lit up. You would really do that? They are my grandchildren, I said simply. I never stopped loving them. The reunion with Tyler and Emma was one of the most emotional experiences of my life. Mark was wonderful with them. He taught them to swim in our pool, told them stories, and showed them that wealth doesn't make you better than anyone else. One day as we watched the children play on the beach, Kevin said to me, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom." Parents never give up on their children, I replied. But sometimes we have to let them fall so they can learn to fly. Mark and I established a foundation in honor of his first wife, Sarah. The Sarah Foundation helped elderly women who had been abandoned by their families. It was my idea, born from my own experience. One evening, exactly 1 year after our wedding, Mark and I renewed our vows. This time, it was a small ceremony at our home, only with the people who truly mattered. Kevin was there with Tyler and Emma. When it came time for the vows, Mark took my hands and said, "A year ago, I promised you eternal love without you knowing who I really was. Today, I promise it to you again now that you know everything." After the ceremony, Kevin approached Mark. "Mr. Vance, I never properly apologized. You are a good man, and my mother is lucky to have found you." Mark extended his hand. "The past is the past, Kevin. What matters is the man you are today." That night, lying in Mark's arms, I reflected on everything that had happened. A year ago, I had been embarrassed on the most important day of my life. And now I had found not only love and security, but also purpose, dignity, and a peace I had never known before. "What are you thinking about?" Mark asked. "I'm thinking that my whole life changed forever," I replied. "And that I wouldn't change anything that happened." "Why not?" "Because it led me exactly where I needed to be. Taught me who I really was. It gave me the strength to defend myself and it brought me to you." Mark kissed my forehead. "You are the strongest woman I know, Maggie." "Well," I gently corrected him. "I'm a woman who learned to be strong when she had no other choice. And that makes all the difference. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to Jamal's Stories. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.